Good evening. Today's lesson is titled, The Virtue of Punctuality. You know, we all like to be on time for things. Some people it bothers more than others. In my dealings with people, I've met all kinds. Some who it didn't bother a bit if they were late, and some that has to be early for everything. So, punctuality. It's a good quality, it's a good habit. The quality or habit of adhering to an appointed time is the definition of punctuality. Strict observances to keep engagements, promptness, and reduced tardiness is a good quality to have, especially as it relates to arriving on time for services of the church. Not the occasional lateness due to unforeseen circumstances, but the habitual practice of being late due to lack of concern of being on time. You know, we can get into the habit of being late. We have seen, again, know people that we've met in our lifetime who it's pretty well a given that they'll be late, whatever it is that we want to or participate in. But the habitual practice of being late, due to lack of concern of being on time, can become a problem. Is there a need for concern regarding the lack of punctuality? Evidently not in the minds of many Christians. Yet I believe it has an adverse effect on the spiritual growth and health of the congregation. Some people have in their minds that it doesn't matter. Some people have in their minds, and these are my own words, that everything rotates around them. When I get there, festivities will begin. Until I get there, well, they're going to wait on me. Now, I'm a firm believer in not waiting on people. If they're not there on time, and if I'm late, and I am occasionally, I'm not always on time. But I would feel pretty bad if people's been sitting waiting on me to show up. I don't think it's appropriate. I think it's very inconsiderate of the person that is late to expect that. I know at my house, at my mother's house, if you weren't on time for dinner, well, there'll be somewhere sitting in the kitchen for you because they're not going to wait on you. They're going to eat. And that's the way I believe it should be myself. Some do not take it seriously, punctuality. The trouble with being punctual is that nobody's there to appreciate it. Mr. Franklin Jones quote. Another quote is, I'm a believer in punctuality, though it makes me very lonely. Another good quote about punctuality. Life in the world lies with you. Be prompt, and you dine alone. Yet others value it highly. Promptness is not only a duty, but it's also a part of good manners. It's favorable to fortune, reputation, influence, and usefulness. A little attention and energy will form the habit, so it is easy to make it work. I have a friend who is constantly late. I don't really take him very seriously, and I don't really pay much attention to what he says if we're going to do something together. I used to work with the guy, and he was late for work every day. He never showed up on time. I realized that everyone around him didn't take him very seriously. He'll show up when he wants to. He'll do it when he wants to. There was no checks and balances. I give it the person who is habitually late and tardy in meetings, making appointments, will never be respected or be successful in life. That's been proven over and over. Find people with good habits and they will go far. Find people with bad habits, especially in dealing with people, and they will have stumbling blocks set before them. Most people, or many people, I guess you could say, in the business world owe most of their success in always being on time, always being respectful of others. Punctuality is the politeness of kings. Lack of punctuality is a thief of someone else's time, especially as an employee who is late for work. But even as friends or brethren, for we have agreed to meet at a set time. If anybody sets an appointment with you, they owe it to you to be on time and to be punctual. Unfaithfulness. Unfaithfulness. In keeping an appointment is an act of clear dishonesty, and you might as well borrow a person's money as his time. Lack of punctuality is a lack of respect for others. And now let's look at some Bible verses that pertain to this. Lack of punctuality is a lack of respect. Romans 12, verse 10. Be kindly affectioned one to another, brotherly love, in honor, preferring one another. Be kindly and affectionate one to another. Brotherly love, and in honor, preferring one another. If you are late, it shows lack of concern. If you have a preference or an interest in someone, you will be there on time for them. Including our Lord, who honors us with his presence. Matthew 18, verse 20. For where two or three are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst. Most will be unlikely to be late for an appointment with someone whom they want to honor. A president, a supervisor. But you know, sometimes we are late for the one we need to place in the highest honor. If we honor others better than ourselves, we will make it a point to be on time when meeting with them. Few things tend more to alienate friendships than a want of punctuality in our engagements. Or someone who breaks a promise, or someone who breaks an engagement with you. Lack of punctuality is a violation of the golden rule. We are to treat others as we want to be treated. Matthew 7:12. Therefore, all things whatsoever you would that men should do to you, do you even so to them, for this is the law and the prophets. Are you not bothered that others are late in meeting with you? Would we be upset if we had people in our lives that disrespect us to the point that they're always late when they want to meet with us? They tell us that we're going to be somewhere and they're not. Lack of punctuality is a violation of the golden rule. Lack of punctuality is the violation of the greatest commandment. We are to love God with all our heart, soul, mind, body, and strength. And thou shalt, Matthew 12, verse 30. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy mind, and with all thy strength. This is the first commandment. When we are late for these meetings to worship God or to learn of God, it may be an indicator that God is not really as important as we let on to be. Sometimes we put God on the back burner. And we come to church or on time for church just when everything falls in line. We don't put anything out of the way in order to go to, we don't put some things out of the way in order to go to church. God is second-class citizen in our lives sometimes, if we're constantly, and it's shown by constant tardiness, constant putting off for tomorrow what should be done today. If we are habitually late for our meetings with the Lord in church, we must really examine our attitudes toward the Lord. One who is generally on time for other appointments but is usually late for worship or prayer is probably experiencing severe backsliding. One who is generally late for all appointments is probably also suffering some form of tardiness in the soul. No one who genuinely loves Christ can be late for an appointment with Him without feeling shame or embarrassment. We need to examine ourselves as to how we feel when we are late for the Lord. How do we feel when we are late for the Lord? With others, what others have said in this regard is follows. Tardiness often robs this opportunity and the dispatch of our forces. The best laid plans, the most important affairs, the fortune of individuals, the wealth of nations, honor, life, and self are daily sacrificed because someone is behind time. Think of the missed opportunities that we are late for to service or services in our church. You know, we sometimes are going to do something and we never do it. Someday we're going to work more for the church. Someday we're going to volunteer to do something. Someday we're going to teach a lesson. Someday we're going to give our life to Christ. Someday we're going to be held accountable for our actions or our inactions. Tardiness can cause all these things. And what causes tardiness many times is lack of interest, lack of dedication, lack of the ability or the desire to take that one more step. That one step to be completely in Christ, or do we want to sit on the sidelines? Think of the missed opportunities that we are late for to serve the church. The opportunity to visit with people. The opportunity to visit with visitors. The opportunity to be of service should there be a last-minute need. The opportunity to hear some point, some truth that was presented prior to arriving late. The impact and value in practicing punctuality. Who often arrive early themselves and visit let me start this again. The impact of those who often arrive early themselves. It being their first time, they often allow more time to find the location. It being an opportunity for us to welcome them and briefly visit with them. What must you think when there are no teachers to welcome their children, or when classes or services start and half the congregation is absent? You know, we need to take into consideration visitors, or our first impression. You know, our first impression is very important to others. Of course, there's always, and it is somewhat true, better late than never. Better late than never. And that isn't even in our lesson for today, but that's another point we need to look at. And we'll look at that in the end. But better late than never is something that has included many people in their Christian walk of life. If visitors are at church, there will be distractions of others arriving 10 to 15 minutes late. But this lesson is entitled The Virtues of Punctuality. But I'm going to interject these thoughts on my own. 10 or 15 minutes late, but better late than never. They will observe the participants of the entire congregation. When services are over, the visitors will likely leave quickly. We need to realize that if we have visitors, we are what they see. We need to welcome them with open arms. We don't need to put off and be late to welcome a visitor into our church. But often the only time we get to visit with them is before the services start. Therein lies the problem. If we're late, we sometimes don't get to visit. And you know, it helps us a lot to visit with one another and fellowship with one another. Being on time or being early enables us to do this. The impact on ourselves. It will make us a better person. I've always been someone after I started working. I guess I started in college. I'm not going to say I've always been, but I guess being with Sandy, she's always a stickler for being on time, and we're never on time. It seems like, but we're always trying to rush and be on time. But we should always put forth that special effort to be on time for church, be on time for our appointments. Providing services to our visitors through meetings with them after the services and before is important. We can't do this if we're not on time. Providing services to our Lord by honoring Him with your punctual arrival. We can't do this unless we are on time. Providing services to those who need to talk or just visit. We can't do this if we're not on time. There's going to be a time in our lives that we're going to be held accountable for our actions here on earth. And we are racing against the clock. Time is important to the Christian. The title of the lesson is Virtue of Punctuality. But let's look at time and the Christian. Or time and the person. They don't have to be a Christian. Let's look at just the time and the person. When we're young, we feel we have all kinds of time. We're young, we feel good, we're doing things, and we're not worrying about the future sometimes. Then we strike middle age. Things begin to slow down. We realize that we're not indestructible as we age. And then we get into our later years and we realize something. We could be running out of time. And you know what? And I've said this before, it may not be a good analogy, but I think it's pretty neat. If you're in a ball game, you can look at the clock and see how much time you've got left. You know how many minutes are in the game. You know what you need to do. You may not be able to do it, but you know what you need to do to win that game. But in our lives, we don't have that luxury. We don't have that clock. We can't see it. We have the clock. But you know, we can't see that clock. We don't know how much time we've got left. It may be many years, and I hope it is. But it may just be a few minutes. We just don't know. And being on time or being punctual, we need to realize that our life with Christ, or our lack of it, for those who haven't accepted Christ as their Savior, I've got news for you. You're running out of time. You're running out of time. And we all know what happens when you run out of time. We know that 5 more minutes, and I hate to use this, but it's true. We see it. We all watch it. 5 more minutes can make a difference in a ball game. The time's out. Five more minutes can make a difference in between winning and losing. 1 more, it could get down to 1 minute. 1 minute in the ball game left. And you could win the game. But time runs out. You know what, in our lifetime, we may be down to the final minute. And we have a big handicap, and that is we don't know when time will run out. So we need to be prepared. We can't turn around and make another play. We need to play as if this is the last minute of the game, every day of our lives. And therein goes back to our title of our lesson, The Virtue of Punctuality. We need to be on time. We need to be on time for God. And we need to realize that we're working against the clock. And tonight, you have the opportunity to have a fresh start, a new start with God in your life. Hear and believe, repent, be baptized in the name of Jesus Christ for the remission of sins gives you another start in life. Gives you a new beginning. And that's what's offered to you tonight as we sing our song and offer our invitation.